talk will be about avenues that you can consider towards making the skills you gained work for you and still turn over a profit. So we'll have Moray also talking about educational side of things. I'll be dipping in here and there about how the corporate world can work for that. And then we have Greg talking about freelancing and working for agencies. So that, Greg, I hand over to you first.
How's it, guys? Can you hear me? Tell me, how many of you are designers and how many of you are animators or aspiring designers or animators? Designers, put your hands up. And animators? And the rest? Are you guys more illustrator types? And writers. Gaming? What else? Okay. So, just to give you a little bit of a background, I actually started in the industry in film and video, and I then eventually ended up in post-production and then started doing animation. So I was at Wicked Pixels. I don't know if you guys have heard of them. Did animation in Wicked Pixels for 3 years, and that was mainly commercials. And of course, with commercial production, there's design work involved, there's animation, there's a whole plethora of skill sets that are required in that industry. And then after that, we started doing, I don't know if you guys have heard of Super Strikers. Anybody? We did the I did all 8 seasons of the Super Strikers animated TV show. I was the lead editor and the post-production supervisor. So there again, we had a whole range of skills involving art, design, backgrounds, you name it. So maybe if, I mean, that is serious stuff, so we're actually supposed to move away from that. So, and now we're more involved in corporate communications. So we're talking about print and video, animation, you know, from comic books. It's all educational stuff. So even though it's corporate, it is training media, and it still involves mad skills with illustration, design, and of course animation. And we put all those things together for our clients, and they're mainly corporate clients, but it's mainly for training, onboarding, communications, and that sort of thing. So when you think about what you can do in the industry, even though you're not, you know, I know a lot of the institutions, and that's something I wanted to bring up, and this is what I deal with a lot when I recruit, is a lot of what's taught in the tertiary educational system, and I think it's changing now for the better, but a lot of it was based solely on getting towards that goal of being a character animator on a show or in a big movie and stuff like that. And that's, we want to like express to you guys that there's so much more to do than that, if that's might still be your goal. But I mean, a massive thing at the moment is motion graphics. So motion graphics is, you know, sort of built up from like the last 10 years or so, like just become massive. You can't put your device on and not watch something that is designed and animated nowadays. So it doesn't need to be character animated. It can be, you know, other design elements that can be animated as well. I mean, for myself, I do mostly motion graphic animation. I don't really go into character because I find it too time consuming and difficult. But we actually, where I work at the moment at Striker Communications, we actually combine both. Combine motion graphics and character animation to create safety videos. So yeah, I mean, the scope is huge, and the guys will tell you a little bit more about that, but it's from my side to begin with.
Okay, so hopefully you can hear me. I'll just speak up a bit. So as mentioned, I'm a lecturer at City Varsity. I'm part of the animation and multimedia department. I didn't start off there. Started off in the design side of things way back in the day. Print media is where I actually started. So what I've seen over the past 20 years or so is a big shift and change away from that print kind of background into the more digital space. So you guys know this from being online. Content needs to be out there a lot quicker than you can print it out. Those old school design skills are still useful though, because you're still using the same stuff as Greg mentioned for doing motion design, for instance. So whatever you've studied in the past, I think what you need to do is kind of look at where things are sitting right now in the social media aspect of things. There isn't a company out there that can ignore that anymore. And for people that can work in that space, that can work with digital programs like Photoshop or Illustrator or After Effects, that is probably the best focus that you can give for any kind of career. And then the other thing is, you also need to approach it not just in terms of social media where you're creating work for the sake of finding a job, but it's more self-promotional, right? Companies love seeing that wherever you are, that you're constantly working at whatever your craft is. So if you don't have a social media presence at the moment, I would definitely encourage that. You need to try and get yourself an Instagram. Make sure that you get onto Behance as a site to put up your work on there. Make sure that you, I wouldn't do Twitter. Twitter can be a horrible place. And thanks to Elon, it's full of right-wing Nazis as well. So maybe not that. But definitely put yourself out there instead of just creating things for a portfolio and then just sending it to a company for work. A lot of the people that I know have been headhunted because of their social media and what they are showing themselves capable of doing out there. Okay, so I don't know if you want to jump in.
Cool. So one of the more overlooked avenues, you can look at corporate world for using your design and animation skills. So I know I said I work in finance, but I've been doing motion design for the last 8 years. Currently, I've been 3 years in the finance industry, creating content that's used in a commercial sense for adverts, product launches, UI designs, cell phone animations. So when you swipe up and down on your cell phone, that is a motion designer that built that animation. If you go onto a website and you have this whole elaborate animation of a character that's just looping, a motion designer did that. So there is definitely an avenue for looking at how you can look at finding work in areas where you might not have expected it. Like Moray said about the social media, that's a huge contributor. And also, like Greg now also said, Super Strikers, the agencies. So even though you might not have gotten a job where when you signed up to become a student, they said, oh no, you can work for Dreamworks. And then only a handful of people made the cut to meet DreamWorks standards. Now you're sitting there and go, okay, what can I do? That's stuff you can look at. Promoting yourself, getting active in the freelance world, getting active in the circles where people are having get-togethers, like here at Comic-Con. There's a motion design SA meetup that happens once a month at Waters Workshop 17 in Waterfront. There's dribble meetups every month, and designers and motion designers and illustrators alike all meet up at these locations. Art directors are there, hiring managers go there, team leads go there. So that's a good networking opportunity to use in order to get your name out there and promote yourself.
Yeah, I just want to add on as well, in terms of a space like Facebook, and I know it's only for old people, there is a Facebook group though called The Resource, which is open to everybody. If you're a designer, illustrator, animator, motion designer, creative industry, writer, anything like that, right? So I would suggest that you join that, because people that are verified, that are looking for freelancers, they advertise on there. So if you answer a posting that's on there and you get chosen to do whatever it is, you can negotiate the rate that you want to get paid, and you will get paid. It's not a maybe kind of situation, because sometimes you encounter that online as well. So just for locals, The Resource is one of I highly recommend that you check that out as any kind of creative person. And then keep your eye on it. There are a lot of illustration jobs that go through there, a lot of motion design, a lot of animation. And it's also on the other side as well, like Greg was saying, sometimes what they're looking for is a project lead, somebody who has the experience to actually run an entire project as well. I'm not saying that you would necessarily qualify for that. What I'm saying is that there's a wide scope of jobs that are out there, but it's really up to you to chase those positions down.
Yeah. I was just going to say as well, when you start building, like we're just talking freelance at the moment, you know, what you want to try and do besides all your networking and getting on social media and getting your stuff somewhere where someone can access it, you also want to connect with potential people that could have work for you sometime in the future or whenever, and you get on their books. You know, you go and meet them, you go and spend a day at you know, whatever company that you might want to work with. There are also other things, like I was thinking Fiverr as well. At one stage I was looking quite heavily into that. There's a lot of companies like Fiverr. So I think be careful of those, because the way they structure their, you know, their subscriptions and stuff could be a little bit tricky, but that could be an avenue. And then also looking at the stock footage sites, there's a lot of potential there to create templates if you're someone who does After Effects animations, or, you know, maybe even artwork as well. You guys know probably more about that than I do.
Yeah. If you are somebody who is heavily into image creation, whether using Photoshop or Procreate or whatever you might be using, Adobe Stock is an international company that they've been around forever, so they're also not going to screw you over. And usually it's as simple as going to their sites and just following the criteria of what you need to submit images to them. And then that's like a royalty thing. As far as I know, it's down to the amount of use of the image that you've created. You get a royalty per image. And people often talk about that passive income situation. So that's one of those where you can create images for Adobe. And then just one other thing that I'd want to mention is sometimes you as a designer or an illustrator feel that I've got these skills and it's kind of okay and I really don't want to teach, but your skills are transferable, right? So there's places like Udemy where you can actually set up a course yourself, and if that immediately turns you off, they have a free course online that will take you through the whole process step by step. How do I create my course? How do I create an assessment? How do I record my video? They take you through the entire thing, and then you can set up your course on there. Now, I know a couple of illustrators, local guys, that have done that, and the feedback that I got from them is maybe for your first course, teaching people how to illustrate, teaching people how to use Photoshop, right? Let's use that as an example. You might not have that much of an uptake on it, but it's when you load your second course where you're now teaching people beyond the basic skills. If you are a designer that works in motion design, for instance, and you make that the focus of your course, then that could be something as a specific thing that earns you more money than doing another course that is specifically around illustration. But the only way that you're going to find out is to do more than one course. And you get to set your prices as well in terms of dollars, which is always useful. And at some point or the other, you hit a point where you've got 3 courses or 4 out there that you no longer need to start chasing down all the freelance in the world, because you've got X amount of people signing up and paying their $50 to do your course per month, you know. So I would definitely suggest that the site is Udemy, and if you just search online, the course is called How to Create an Online Course, the official Udemy course. It's as simple as that, and they'll take you through the whole process. So whatever your skill is that you have, make that a focus and figure out what kind of a course you can create around that.
Yeah, just to add, also teaching is one of the more better ways of doing online marketing for yourself, because once you start teaching online, it creates an impression that you know what you're talking about when you speak to other people. And it also attributes to when you actually walk into a place and you apply for a job. One of the questions that normally get asked is, what do you do in your spare time? And if you say you teach, it already shows a level of seniority that you will have above other people, putting your application for whatever job ahead. So teaching is a great avenue. One of the reasons why freelancing gets harped on so much is I'm not sure if it's changed in recent years, but when I started out 9-10 years ago, freelance was about the only way to go. Full-time job in the animation industry was unheard of. You worked per project, and once the project's done, you have to look for work again. So that was one of the drivers that made me think, where else can I go look? Because I prefer the stability of getting a monthly paycheck, which is how I ended up in digital marketing. So that's also things to consider. What are you willing to do, and what are you not willing to do when you make your living doing what you have? So definitely consider where you want to head.
Yeah, I think, can we open it up for questions to you guys? Just to, if there's any questions from your side, we'd be happy to answer.
That's one with them.
But any of you have any questions?
Hi there. I have maybe two questions. For those working in digital marketing, yeah, do you see, can you foresee work hours improving for employees, or do you think it's going to stay the same and or get worse?
That, I would say, is 100% dependent on where you're working. I've been with Payfast now for 3 years. I have not worked a single day of overtime involuntarily. So all my overtime I've worked was because I wanted to finish the project. And I've got flexi hours. I start at 7 in the morning, I finish at 3:30. The core hours are 9 to 3. That's just Payfast. Other companies are different, but overtime also 90% of the time is bad communication and bad planning. So I know I'm bashing a lot of people there, but that is the long and short of it.
That's very encouraging. I come from the film industry, so I'm looking for a 9 to 5. The other question I had was about being a jack of all trades versus niching down, and the value of each and how far each can get you, maybe. Because I'm jack of all trades, and I'm at the point now where I need to niche down, maybe, but I don't know if how much.
That's actually a very good question, and it depends on. I think it depends on what you know. Are you more wanting to do freelance work and expand your skill set to be able to offer more to your clients, or are you, because usually in a studio environment we kind of break people up into certain functions, so which is how it should be. I mean, I think if you start asking people, and I see it quite often. There's a lot of positions that are advertised, and they're actually expecting you to do freaking everything, and yeah, it's total madness. So I think from a studio work day, everyday point of view, specializing is very good. You stand out. Freelancing, maybe it's not that important to do that, and more important to be able to be more dynamic. So
yeah, from my background, having done illustration and being a designer, I would say for a designer, the jack of all trades thing is kind of important. We get these requests from companies when they're looking for past graduates, where they want a unicorn. You need to be able to do everything digitally. You need to have a design background, graphic design, understand what that's about, plus be an animator, plus be a 3D artist, plus be able to design websites. And I'm like, you will go crazy if you try to learn all of that stuff. Pick a lane for yourself that you want to specialize in, but kind of learn additional skills just in case, because that's what companies want. But if you're an illustrator, I would recommend that you develop your own style and that you really try to get good at doing that, because people will employ you for your specific style versus jack of all trades. Me, I can do cartoony and I can do realistic but people can't pin it down to say, I specifically want somebody who draws like Moray, because Moray doesn't have a style. But they can, a lot of these other guys that are here, they can go, okay, that's a style that we want specifically. We want Warren Lowe, for instance, to do concept art for us because he's developed that specific style. So illustration, I would go be a master of. And if it's design, unfortunately, I would recommend that you need to be a bit more flexible.
There are also potential niche jobs that you might not, and I think that's what we talked. I was just thinking of another one, which is storyboarding for animatics, which is something that we do all the time, and we find it difficult to get people that have that skill set. And we're not talking about just being able to, a drawing ability, but the thing with doing storyboards and animatics is you need to understand blocking, you need to understand framing, you need to understand cinema, film and cinema. So that's another niche that you can think of getting into if you're really keen on movies and stuff like that. And we do animatics for anything from commercials to series work. So just think about that maybe.